In viewing Renaissance Man, I asked you to stop. The Double D's and Rago have gone on a field trip up to Canada, and they have seen Henry V. Sadly, Hobbes is not with them. You saw what happened to Hobbes. But they go up there, and why I asked you to stop, and I stopped when I was teaching in public school and teaching this, I stopped showing parts of this, or almost all the movie, and I broke away and I said, now we're going to take a look at Henry V. The movie, Henry V, done in 1989 by Kenneth Branagh. Really, this was the movie, I think, that made his reputation as a Shakespearean director. And he plays the part of Henry V. There are three parts that I like my students to see. Two of them, the first and the third, aren't really necessary for viewing Renaissance Man, but they're fun. They're all three are on YouTube. And by all means, watch the whole movie if you want. I don't recommend it quite as heartily as I do other ones, but I should tell you that Henry V was like England's warrior king. He was supposedly an ugly man, but a great warrior. I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. But anyway, the first to see is on YouTube. It says Henry V's French Princess. That's where you'll find it. And why I like to show that is because, what's her name? Can't think of the actress's name. You'll recognize the same actress that played Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing. She plays the part of Catherine, and she speaks no English. So she says to her servant, Alice, "Tu parles bien la langue." Well, she says, "You have been in England and you speak well the language." And Elise says, "Un peu," a little. The whole scene is in French. And I think that says something about the time, that Shakespeare could have written one of his plays for an English audience to be performed in London and write an entire scene in French. That's how important French is to the English language. Well, anyway, there's a body joke built into it. She wants to learn English, so she says, "Comment dit-on les doigts?" How does one say the fingers? And she goes through the neck, the chin, the hand, the arm. And then she finds the body joke that it builds up to. All of a sudden, they bust out laughing. Because she says, "Comment dit-on le pied et la robe?" The foot and the gown, or the dress, the gown. And the reason they laugh is because those words in French are very nasty words. My students, I don't mean to tantalize them, but I say, no, I'm not going to tell you how to say that in French, because they're English words, but they have nasty meanings in French, and that's why they laugh so hard. So anyway, if you research it, you can find out more about that. It's a fun scene. Here is the one that I really want the kids to see. Henry V basically defeated France against incredible odds. It was at the Battle of Agincourt, and there was an earlier battle too. 5-1 the odds were. When I have time, I show a documentary about that battle, where modern archaeologists go to the battle scene to try to figure out how did that happen. How could the English have won? The best thinking, I think, now is it had to do with the mud. The French were on horseback. They greatly outnumbered the English. When I first heard about this as a kid, I learned that it was the English longbow that made the difference. Well, maybe that too, but in any case, he won. It's one of the most remarkable military upsets of history. And before the battle, he gives a speech. It's usually called the Band of Brothers speech. And it's posted on by Conserve 8. It's posted on YouTube by many. But that's just one that I know works pretty well. And I wanted the students to hear that because in Renaissance Man, the soldiers would have heard that when they went to Canada. And one other thing I'll tell you, you would have to go a little bit past it in the movie, but just before the battle, there is a crescendo. That's a musical term when something starts soft and gets louder and louder and louder and louder. As the French, you hear the French, the hooves of the French horses pounding as they're charging. I think, I have my own personal theory, that that was alluded to in the movie Saving Private Ryan, when the American soldiers hear a tank, a German tank in the distance approaching, and there's this long crescendo as it gets louder and louder and louder. Now Saving Private Ryan is set in very much the same part of the world, in northern France. So I don't know, I've just thought that before. And then finally, the other scene is really fun if you listen to it. Henry V, on YouTube, it's Henry V, Catherine and Henry's scene. Catherine by this time speaks a little bit of French, or English. Henry speaks a little bit of French, and the two are going to be married, and they have this conversation. And I suppose I could talk more about it, but the thing to do is just listen to it. It goes on a little bit beyond what I would do in my class. It takes it right to the end of the play. But it's delightful. Henry was supposed to have been an ugly man. And he says, old age, that ill layer up of beauty. In other words, when you get old, you don't get better looking. But he argues, it's not going to do any harm to me, because I already look bad. It's a very delightful scene. So that would be for the joy of it. That one and that one. But this for Renaissance Man. And tomorrow I think I'll take you to the end of Renaissance Man. See you then.